OSCE. Our speaker is Alexander Hook, the deputy head of the special monitoring mission of OSCE. The briefing will be in English.
Dear friends, good morning. Thank you for your interest in this briefing of the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission to Ukraine. Over the past reporting period, there has been a marked deterioration of the security situation in Donbass, which we have seen not just in the last week, but over the past few weeks. The SMM has noted a greater presence, movement and use of heavy weapons along the contact line. In particular, we have noted a continued build-up of military hardware in and around the DPR-controlled Komsomolsk, northeast of Mariupol. We have also registered the distribution of these weapons further south along the contact line as far as Sontseve, directly across the strategically important area around government-controlled Hranitny. On just one day, for example, on 23rd of June, our unmanned aerial vehicles noted armored personnel carriers being loaded with ammunition and forming a convoy. Later, they spotted in Ternove, further south along the contact line, 38 main battle tanks, 7 towed artillery pieces, 12 military trucks, and 6 armored personnel carriers. Over the past weeks, our monitors and unmanned aerial vehicles have also spotted heavy weapons in government-controlled areas that are in violations of the weapons' respective withdrawal lines. On a side note, we had recently had a journalist enormously tweeting that the SMM is unaware of these developments. Obviously, this is incorrect. We have reported on it on numerous occasions, in fact, long before this particular journalist has discovered it. My point is here to encourage all journalists and commentators to check their facts and our reports as well before they publish and broadcast. We are always willing and have been so in the past and are able to help if you have queries or need facts or have facts to be checked. Weapon build-up has, of course, entailed the greater use and inevitably more destructions and led to more death and injuries. We have, for instance, noted during the past 2 weeks extensive damage to property in Shirokine, where we have also noted that the entire civilian population has now left the village. In government-controlled Stanitsia Luhanska, interlocutors informed the SMM that 1 woman had been killed and 3 armed forces soldiers have been injured on 26th of June in a shelling incident in the village. In DPR-controlled Sakhanka, a man told the SMM that his brother has been killed on 27th June as a result of a direct hit on his garage. That civilians are dying comes as no surprise, as both sides continue to place their firing positions in or close to civilian infrastructure. The increasing use of heavy weapons is evident to our monitors. Yesterday, for instance, over a 6-hour period, they have recorded 200 explosions, almost half of which originated from artillery in and around the Donetsk airport. Apart from a build-up and greater use of military hardware, we have also increasingly noted that more weapons have been removed from holding areas, allegedly for repair or training purposes. Please note that the Minsk arrangements and package of last February do not foresee the re-engagement of heavy weapons at the contact line. We have also seen our unmanned aerial vehicles having their signal jammed, preventing them from recording events on the ground along the contact line. Our monitors as well still face restrictions in their freedom of movement. In particular, we are routinely and systematically prevented by the so-called APR from accessing areas along the Ukraine-Russian Federation international border. There has been recently a sharp deterioration in the humanitarian situation too, with even more restrictive practices at checkpoint on the contact line. Long delays have been noted by the SMM, with 800 vehicles waiting to enter so-called DPR-controlled areas through a checkpoint at Zaitsevo on 27th June, for example. With checkpoints an obvious target, such practices expose civilians to an unacceptable risk. The SMM noted damage to a civilian vehicle and injuries to the driver at a checkpoint in DPR-controlled Oktyabr on 21st of June, for example. The SMM covers this topic extensively in its thematic report on protection of civilians and their freedom of movement in the Donetsk and Luhansk region. Please note that this report is publicly available on our website. These restrictions on freedom of movement, however, impact people more directly economically, with commerce adversely affected and people unable to access social services in government financial provisions on the other side of the contact line. Companies and business unable to sell into or buy supplies from government-controlled areas are also finding it very difficult to survive. Endangering food securities and jobs, these developments in turn also affect the civilian population in Donbass at large. This week saw 2,000 people lose their jobs, for example, in so-called DPR-controlled Tukhachevsk, with the closure of a local factory there. Civilians are again facing difficulties in accessing basic utilities. In so-called LPR-controlled Raivka, for example, people were without electricity. The SMM was able to arrange a local ceasefire which held long enough for repair crews to fix the damage there. Please also be informed that the next meeting of the Security Working Group within the framework of the Trilateral Contact Group will take place next week on July the 7th in Minsk. We hope that the Minsk signatories will agree on measures to fully implement the Minsk agreements. I would also like to inform you that from tomorrow onwards until Monday, I will be traveling to the east to meet with my monitors to assess the security situation for myself there, conduct meetings with interlocutors, and also meet with the representatives of the Joint Center for Control and Coordination. Finally, and as usual at the end of my briefing, an update on our mission strength. We have 17 new monitors, which brings us to a total of 489 international monitors deployed across Ukraine. 2/3 of them are deployed in eastern Ukraine. Together with other international staff and our Ukrainian colleagues, we have now 781 individuals deployed in this mission. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm available now to your questions, should you have any.
Thank you very much, Alexander. Якщо є питання,
If you have any questions, please ask them. Don't forget to introduce yourselves.
With Iran, has the OSCE been able to see any commercial cargo passing through to the rebel-held areas since the June 16th decree?
The OSCE Special Monitoring Mission is present at the contact line. We have seen an increased difficulties in civilians, including civilians with cargo, to pass the contact line. We have reported that civilians have to walk often long distances with a lot of luggage themselves carrying physically across the contact line because of these restrictions in place. There are at points cargo being let through on ad hoc basis, and cargo that relates to humanitarian aid has managed to pass the contact line into areas not controlled by the government.
There was an OSCE summary report that discussed, I believe it was a Ukrainian commander telling the OSCE that heavy trucks were not being let in. Do you know if specifically commercial large trucks, lorries, are being let through past the last Ukrainian checkpoints?
We have not seen a large amount of regular commercial traffic passing through checkpoints across the contact line.
Thank you very much. If there are any other questions or clarifications, чи є ще запитання або уточнення?
Once you have no questions or clarifications,
We wish you good luck on
You're
your
welcome. Thank
trip
you.
to Donetsk region. На цьому завершимо наш брифінг. Наш наступний брифінг об 11:00. Будемо говорити про Крим під
our next briefing will be taking place at 11. We'll be talking about Crimea and the occupation.